and they each say different things. But what the one time that matters, it says 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So hello everyone, and welcome to the library live stream. Today, the skills team, myself and Naomi, will be talking to you all about starting university. So we're going to go through in the live stream what our advice is for starting university, based on our own times when we just started university, because both of us have been to university, and we'll be going back into when we first started, which are different times for me 5 years ago, for Naomi a few more years than 5 years ago.
17 we decided.
17. And we'll be discussing also the advice of students who started university slightly more recently than us, and what their advice is. So we'll be showing some resources that they have helped create in terms of podcasts that you can go and listen to elsewhere. And we'll be also advertising relevant resources that will help you with your start at university, both for ones that are made by the skills team and the library, and also ones that are made by other areas of the university that you may find that are useful. And that is basically what the stream will be. And at the end of the stream, we have some time for some questions. So if you have any stupid questions, if you think they're stupid, I don't think they're stupid. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll get to them during the course of the live stream. We can see the chat, and we can answer them in real time. There is a 20-second delay because of the nature of a live stream, so we won't see what you say for 20 seconds, but that's totally fine. So feel free to ask any questions, make comments, and it'll be nice to hear and see and know everyone who's here. So that is the live stream, but now I feel like we should introduce ourselves. So first of all, Naomi, would you like to introduce yourself and the skills team, and then I'll introduce myself afterwards.
Oh, see, already we're diverging from the plan. Alex, you're supposed to be the one that sticks to the plan.
Yeah.
Now you're diverging. I can introduce myself. So I am Naomi. I have worked in the library at the university for 11 years now, so I've been here a while, and in the skills team for a few years. I can't remember how many years it's been in the skills team. And yes, what do I enjoy about my work in the skills team? I enjoy talking to students. I enjoy working with students. I enjoy preparing resources. A lot of what we're going to talk about when we talk about the resources we've got have been prepared by myself, Alex, other members of the team. And yes, so we are the skills team. At the moment, it is Alex and myself. And our role is to help all students with those universal study skills that will come up as you study. So we cover topics like academic writing, organisation, time management, note-taking, lots and lots of things. But it's those universal skills that everybody needs whilst they're studying are the ones that we cover. And we do that by creating content, creating workshops, running live streams, this kind of thing, to really help you guys and give you that information at your fingertips that you can find when you need it, essentially. Alex, you're now going to introduce yourself. I'm all confused because we have a plan for these live streams. It may sound like we don't know what we're doing, but we do have a plan. But Alex has gone off plan already. So Alex, introduce yourself.
Yes.
The rebel. Alex the rebel.
I just changed the order that way to introduce ourselves as all. So I'm Alex, so I am a recent graduate of the university and a current student, and I also work full-time for the skills team Monday to Friday, and actually my master's in law part-time on Saturdays, or also in the evenings of the week, because that's how I balance my time. So I do that whilst alongside working here. I make lots of resources that Naomi just alluded to, and we'll be discussing some of the resources that myself and Naomi have created throughout the workshop. Before we began the before we began the live stream, I'm used to doing workshops rather than live streams. Before we began the live stream, Naomi and I were talking about what excited us, and I mentioned my dissertation, and Naomi was talking about how she's excited for all the new workshops to come out. But what is exciting generally is starting university, because at the start of university, there are so many opportunities for you and so much new times and new things that will come your way that you can really delve into and explore. But we do appreciate that because of all the new things that go on, some students may feel overwhelmed slightly, they may feel slightly nervous or slightly anxious. And so what we're going to do in today's live stream is we're going to talk about what our advice is for overcoming that, and also advice for getting off to the best start at university. So I think that is where we shall start the live stream. Are you okay to start, Naomi, or do you have any other starting comments to make?
No, I am fully on board with that.
Totally. Okay then. So what we'll do now is we'll start off by giving some of our advice, and I think the first piece of advice that I would like to give is just about how, if at the start of university, and this is probably my most important piece of advice for this entire live stream, if at the start of university you feel that there's so much information and don't think you can remember it all, or you feel overwhelmed or nervous, it's not just you. I know when I started university 5 years ago, I was very nervous, and I thought that I definitely wasn't good enough to do it because I'd had poor A-level results, and I almost felt like I was a pretender. I graduated with a first class degree, so I was okay in the end, but at the first start I thought I wasn't coping very well because of all the different information that came our way. But it turns out there's lots of people who are like that. I spoke to a student in a podcast recently called Katie Harrod, and in one of her lectures put up a poll, and that poll asked people anonymously, how are you feeling right now? And people could write on their own different feelings. And so many people said that they were nervous about meeting new people, they found all sorts of information. So just know, whatever happens, it's not just you, and it is normal, and that after the first 4 weeks, things start to settle down a bit and you get into a rhythm. But at the start of university, it's a bit different, and it's probably the most challenging time. But if you can get through those first 4 weeks, you'll be okay. Naomi?
Yes, when I started, like I said, I have been thinking about what happened when I started university. I was slightly different, and I think we had sort of almost sort of parallel but mirror image, that doesn't make sense, experiences, because I felt quite confident about the studying aspect. I was on board with finding out where I needed to be, where I needed to go. I've always been quite organized. I was very worried about leaving home, so I moved into halls. I moved a 5-hour drive away from my family. That I wasn't happy about that at all. That made me quite nervous, quite anxious. I was worried about, there was lots of things going on in my personal life, my family life at home that I was worrying about as I started. So I think it is important to remember that everybody's got their whole lives. Your whole life is your whole life. So starting university is a big part of that, but nobody's doing that in isolation. So if you're finding that there are things not about starting university that are worrying you, or that are on your mind, like my washing machine right now is on my mind, but again, that's normal. Lots of people will be in that situation as well, and it's about navigating your way through that as best you can.
Yeah, definitely. At university, the only things going on in the world is not university. There are, at some point in university, something other than university is going to be on your mind, whether that's at the start or at some point. But that's normal, and there's always going to be a challenge. I think looking back at my time, I had a few challenges: people passing away, people being ill, me being ill, things like that. Different challenges come up, and know that they will happen. But if they do happen, it's not unusual. The university there is support there. If you are unsure what to do in those situations, you can always ask. There's someone called a personal academic tutor who you will be assigned, who's going to be one of your lecturers. So you can ask them a question like that, and they can either tell you the answer, or they can take you to someone who can give you the answer. So that's a useful resource that does exist at the university if you have issues like that, which do come up and they do happen. So don't worry if it does. Stay calm and ask the questions so that people who can hopefully answer you. So that's the first piece of advice that we have, and we have quite a few pieces of advice for starting university. But if anyone has any comments about any of those pieces of advice, if they agree, disagree, have a counter question based on them, feel free to ask it in the chat. But the second piece of advice that I have for starting university, it relates to that anxiety that I talked about before, and about how trying to make friends. And I mentioned about how I felt quite anxious at the start of university, and I was quite nervous about speaking to different people. And what I ended up just doing is I used a method that is backed up by a few other students I've spoken to in the course of making podcasts about starting university, and that's just to go to someone and say hi, and say what your name is, and say, hi, what's your name? And that worked so well. And just saying hi is the start, so don't worry about having to come up with a line to ask them afterwards. Just say, hi, what's your name? And start asking questions and discussing from there. And the worst thing that can happen is, well, they don't want to speak to you at that point, and it's fine. So yeah, great way to meet people. What do you think about that approach, Naomi? Just talking to people at the start.
Yes, although that can be quite daunting.
Definitely.
My best advice I ever heard about making friends was something I saw on the internet, and I should be able to credit it back, but I cannot remember where I saw it at all. But it was just about seeing the same people again and again and again. So even if you don't want to talk to people the first time you see them, you might give them a little smile, maybe. Or or not a wave, that looks a bit cheesy. You can wave at people if you want, but that probably wasn't the best idea. And then it might be 2, 3, 4 times that you see them that you first strike up that conversation, or they strike up a conversation with you. But there's something really powerful about that gradual build-up of a friendship. So again, even if these things don't happen straight away, keep at it, keep turning up to your classes, to your social activities, and these things will come.
Definitely. You don't need to start off by making the friends. Just start making a small network of people you can talk to, even if they don't have the same interests as you per se. So the way I approached it is I just started speaking to people, particularly if they're on their own. So if anyone was on their own on the first day, looking nervous, looking like they didn't have anyone to talk to, I'd just go up to them and say hi. And that made a world of difference to them. I remember one of my friends said, after I spoke, who's one of my best friends now, but at the time I'd never spoken to him at all, he said that he'd gone 3 days at university and he hadn't plucked up the confidence to speak to anyone. And he was so grateful that I'd gone and spoken to him, just because he was struggling and he hadn't got that confidence to speak to people. But now he does. He's amazingly confident now by comparison, but at the time he didn't. So just if you see someone on their own, go up to them, say hi. They may turn out to be your best friend 5 years later, for example. Who that person is one of my best friends. So yeah, don't worry about people saying no or whatnot. Everyone at the start of university wants to make friends. You may realise that in a few years you don't like that person, but at the start everyone wants to be nice. Everyone wants to make friends. No one's going to try and
Hopefully if you don't like someone, you might work it out before a few years' time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
My most recent experience of this actually was when my daughter started school. So I now have this was a year ago she started school. I now have a group of friends that other mum friends that I talk to when I drop my daughter off at school. And the way I started talking to those people was things like asking questions. Does anybody else know what we're supposed to be doing? That's a good question. Does anybody know where this child is supposed to go? That sort of question. Actually, it's a really good conversation starter, and it sort of bands you together as well. If nobody knows what they're doing, you can sort of be a collective of people that don't know what you're doing, and that can be genuinely a really bonding thing. I picked her up yesterday. She had gymnastics club after school. It wasn't yesterday, it was the day before. Gymnastics club after school, and it was the first after school club that they've had because of the whole pandemic thing. So again, there suddenly it's a new situation again. I've got to pick this child up, and I don't quite know where I'm picking her up from. And the lady next to me turned to me and said, do you know where they're supposed to be coming out? And I was like, I've no idea, but we'll do it together. I was like, we can't all be wrong. We can all be wrong, but if we are all wrong, we're all being wrong together. And that actually is it's a really good way to make connections and make friends, I find.
Definitely. I was speaking to a lecturer, an academic at the university called Dr. David Robertshaw for a podcast about failure, and he talked about how one of the best ways to make friends is through challenge. And at the start of university, it is a challenge. There's uncertainty, people don't know each other, and that's one of the best catalysts for making friends. And even if you just don't make friends within your lectures and your courses and you aren't interested in anyone there are other ways of making friends as well. There are societies you can get involved in. They're keen to make friends. There are sports as well, and you can even form a club of speaking to people who live with you if you live in halls, for example. There's lots of different ways of making contacts whilst at university, and societies, I think, are a great way of doing that because people will automatically have a unifying interest with you to start with. So that interest could be your subject, so it could be an academic society like law, which is mine, or it could be something like gaming, like there's a gaming society, for example, or debating as well, which I'm biased at all three of those. Anyways, yes. So have you got anything else you want to add about friendship and making friends?
No, I don't.
I actually have one more thing that I wanted to add, and that is when I was interviewing Katie Harrod, a first-year student, about finding her feet at university, she recommended a book, which I have not read, but I have a link in the description of that, and that is called How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is available in the library. I'll put a link to it in the chat. But if you are struggling and really want a book, it's a YouTube link, so it's been super long. Let me just get another link for it. But yes, if you are worried about making friends and you want a book about how to do so, there is one available in the library. And there you go. There's a link to it in the chat. So, after giving 2 pieces of advice to me, Naomi, would you like to give 1 piece of your advice to split it up a little bit?
Yeah, and Alex, we talked about this. I'm sure we said we weren't going to do that.
I know.
But that's all right. I can. This is how Alex operates. He pretends to agree with me and then launches it on me when we're live. But that's okay. I can cope. I can be flexible. So my first piece of advice is to go at your own pace. So that might be a slower pace than the other people around you. You might think, or it might be a faster pace than the other people around me. I get very much a sense that I want to know things, I want to sort things, I want to have things planned. Things not being planned, I find very stressful. So I have quite a fast pace when I start things like this, because I want to get everything sorted. I want to have my plan of what's going to happen next solid. So I work quite a fast pace. You might find that you want to go at a slower pace, do things more slowly. Doesn't matter, as long as it's a pace that you are comfortable with. I mean, going majorly too fast or majorly too slow might be an issue, but generally, don't worry that you are doing things more quickly than others around you or doing things more slowly than others around you. Find your own pace and go with that.
And I think that's such a good piece of advice, because university, you aren't competing against the people in your course. They're just people who are there alongside you. Actually, you're working together with them. They may be able to help you with things, not necessarily help you to write your essays, because that's cheating, but they're able to give you advice and things like that, and pointers or notes, or help you out, for example, if you aren't able to make a lecture and so on, by giving you notes and such. Actually, you aren't competing against them, so it doesn't matter if they get a first. It doesn't affect your chances of getting a first. But what also is worth thinking about is, it doesn't matter if another student's wanting to get a first. If you want to get a third, that's your pace, go for it, that's your aim. So work out what you want to do and don't worry about what the people are doing. And don't feel like just because they're doing this, you have to do it too. Feel free to go your own way and at your own pace as well. Cool. So speaking of that, an idea that contrasts that slightly, which I think is a piece of advice I have to give, is about shooting for the stars. And what I mean by that is, when you're at university, don't try to limit yourself. I know that when I started university, I hadn't got the best A-level grades in the world. I had underperformed in my view, which I'll talk about later again, but that doesn't necessarily indicate what you're going to be able to do at university. But I said to myself I wanted to get a 2-1, because that's what I heard you needed to be to become a solicitor, which was at the time my goal. So that was my aim, just to get that. And actually, I realised that I was limiting myself because I was never looking at the criteria for a first class. But then I had an idea in my second year, and that was to start looking at the criteria for a first, because if I made a mistake, and I was aiming for a 2-1, I wouldn't get a 2-1, I'd get a 2-2 or lower. But if I started hitting the criteria for a first, and then I made a mistake, well, I might get the 2-1 I wanted. But by aiming higher and aiming for something that I didn't even think was achievable, and trying to do those things, I started getting feedback that I could then use, and then I started getting firsts. And I didn't think I was capable of getting first. And like I said, I got a first class degree in the end. But I didn't think I was capable of that. So what I'd recommend doing is aiming high, aiming for slightly above what you think you can achieve, and then that could help you to get it. Even if you don't get it in the end, that's okay. But you make it possible when you don't limit yourself. Because if you limit yourself, you can never hit that target. And there's a student who I interviewed for that podcast for a podcast about transitioning from A level to university, and he did as badly as A levels as I did, got into university at Derby, and then came here. And he said to himself, "I want a first." He came out with a first, and it's just about mindset and confidence. And if you don't limit yourself, then you can actually achieve what you want to. So, Naomi, do you have anything you want to add about that point?
I don't think so. I'm fully on board. I fully agree.
Other than that, it's cheesy.
I did. So what's written in in the notes is shoot for the stars and you may just hit them. Although I think what I've seen on beautiful Instagram pictures is shoot for the stars even if you miss your land on the moon or something like that.
I was going to say
cheesy. So I was just objecting to the cheese, but it's fine. So a bit of cheese is all right, isn't it? We can be a bit cheesy at times.
Definitely.
It's all fine.
One thing I want to add onto the cheese, probably the last cheese quote I have for you, is that university is a chance to reinvent yourself, and there's a good reason for that, and that's because who you are before you come to university doesn't have to be who you finish as. Because when I started university, I genuinely didn't know anyone. I think I knew 2 people in total, and people in the past had preconceptions about who I was, what I was capable of, and at university no one knew who I was, so I didn't have to be limited by the social things that limited me before. So I had the chance to reinvent myself as who I am, well, now I guess, without having people know who I am and having the preconceptions of, oh, Alex is like this, he does that. Whereas now I was in a room with people who didn't know what Alex did and Alex did not do in the past. Alex could go and be a different Alex who did different things to what he usually used to do. So you've got the opportunity to reinvent yourself if you want to. So, for example, I never used to do my homework, as an example, when I was at college and before that. And at university, I went out of my way to do my work as much as possible because people didn't get that preconception of me, for example. So you can reinvent yourself if you want to. Anything to add about that, Naomi, before I ask you to give another piece of advice?
Just resisting saying that it's a journey. But I'm not going to say that your time at university is a journey.
It is a journey. It's a student journey.
That's true.
Okay. So, Naomi, do you want to give another piece of your advice, or do you want me to give another piece of mine?
No, I can give another piece of mine. My next piece of advice is very straightforward and simple. If you're not sure about anything, then ask someone. It might be a good idea to try and pick a person that you think is reasonable to ask, but if you can't think of someone who's even appropriate to ask, just ask someone. And generally people, certainly university staff, will either help you or try and find you someone who will be able to help you. So if you're not sure, ask. And that certainly goes for anything related to library resources, the skills resources that we've got that we'll show you in a bit. If you're not sure about them, you're not sure how to use them, not sure how to access them, then just ask and someone will help you out.
And it's better to ask now than it is later. So, for example, if you aren't sure about a concept, for example, in your classes, what happens in the second year at university is that concept may be required for you to know that, and they'll assume you know it. So if you didn't get it in your first year, you may scrape through without knowing it, but in the second year, they just expect you to know what that is. So if you don't ask it then, in your first year, you may start to struggle in the second year. However, if you find yourself in that position, it does happen. Although the best time to ask was in your first year, the second best time to ask is now. So you need to ask it. You just need to ask the question. Even if you sound stupid for a moment, it will save you looking stupid for the time in your degree. And I've been there. I had an assessment. I had my recent assessments. I didn't know what an easement was in my head, and I'd studied them, and I completely forgot what they were. So I just asked someone, or I did research. I could have done research instead, but I just asked, and then I knew what they were. But I was meant to know what they were my second year, and I was like, forgotten again. Let's just ask. I sounded stupid, but then the exam, when a question came up about them, I didn't look stupid then. Anyways, so that's a good piece of advice, Naomi. I definitely agree with that. Anything further to add about that one before we go on to the next one?
That was my short and snappy piece of advice.
Cool. Very good. I guess I'll ask something in a similar vein then. So my next piece of advice is about mindset at university, and especially works for anyone who's a mature student who's worked in an area similar to what they're doing now. And that is that you won't get everything right on your first attempt at university, and you're not really meant to, if I'm honest. If you get 100% or 90% on your first essay, well done. But I don't think I know many people who've done that, because that is amazing if you do. University is meant for you to experiment and explore and work out what's best and what the best ways of doing things are. And the way it does that is that the first year of your degree does it, same with the foundation as well. You only have to pass those. And so you aren't meant to get everything on the first attempt. You're meant to get feedback. You're meant to use that feedback. You're meant to reflect on that feedback and on your own performance. And then use that reflection to do better next time and to work out how to improve how you do things. Because like Naomi said, university is a journey. Or did she say that, or did she imply it?
I said I wasn't going to say it.
As Naomi didn't say.
Actually, this is a point, and I was saying to you earlier, Alex, that again we've got this sort of different experience in, because you had the experience of doing less well in your A levels than you wanted to, and then coming to university and really changing all that around. My experience was I did quite well in my A levels. I was quite pleased with myself. I felt like I knew what I was doing and that I was on board with everything. And then I came to university. Like I said, I had a lot going on in my personal life, my first year of university, and that was completely reflected in my grades. So I was getting grades that were well below where I wanted to be. And that was really hard. That was really something that I struggled with. And I remember talking to someone about it, and who was saying, well, this is just the step up from A level to university. It is a step up, and that's you just haven't made it. You just not managed that step up. And I remember feeling so frustrated and thinking, no, that's not true. I know I can do this. It's just not happening. And that was a real struggle for me. But as Alex said, it's normal not to do everything perfectly at first. And I did. I accessed the services that my university had, the wellbeing services at my university. I got a lot of support, and I pulled those grades up. In fact, you could see. When you look back at my grades, you could see the point where the support that I had accessed kicked in, because my grades just shifted up 2 class levels when that support kicked in. So yeah, definitely it's not the end of the world if you're not getting the grades that you're after right from the beginning, because you're on a journey. You are at university to learn, and there's so much going on, particularly when you start, so much going on, that's all. Starting university is part of all of that, and it's all going to impact on what you're doing. But that ability to look at your feedback, to improve based on it, all that kind of thing, that's the skills that's going to get you through.
And I definitely agree with that. I know Naomi has made lots of resources about the skill of reflection, to reflect on those failures to help you get the most out of them. And
successes.
Yeah, successes and anything, yes. And I was just going to say about as well, I feel that sometimes actually having a failure can be the best motivator for change, even if that failure isn't much of a failure. For example, that could be something as small as you've not been critical, or it could be a failure in terms of you just got well below what you expected. Sometimes that can be a wake-up call that you do need to change and act, and that can be the best thing for you at times. So I know that when I started my Masters, I had to write in a completely different way, because of my being very specific type of Masters, to what I had to write at university. And I got 52% in my first Masters exam. And having reflected on that, I started then doing better and better because of my reflections on that. And that's after getting the first class undergraduate degree as well. So it's just about working out the system and then adapting and overcoming that system and doing better after you've reflected on it. And university is designed in a way that allows you to do that and to reflect and to improve. Cool. So, Naomi, would you like to give your final piece of advice?
I can do. So this is about a balance, striking a balance between the social aspects of university experience and the academic aspects of your university experience. Now, depending on who you are, where you are in your life, where you are physically located, all those things are going to have an impact on both your social university experience and academic university experience. But there's opportunities for all students, both academically and socially, as part of that university experience. They might look different, but those opportunities are there. So make sure that you're striking that balance between the two of them. And that balance, again, is going to look different for different people. So I am very much an introvert. I find spending time with people very tiring. I enjoy it, but it's very tiring. So I need to make sure that if I want to conserve my energy, that I'm not doing too much social stuff. And I actually get energy back from academic work and from that kind of thing, whereas someone else might find that they find the studying the academic aspects, again, they might be enjoying it, but they find that tiring, and they get energy back from socializing and spending time with others. So finding that balance that works for you is really important.
100%. Finding what works for you. If you want to find social opportunities at university, there are lots of them. I personally never chose to go to any of the freshers events, whereas lots of people I knew loved them, but I felt like those would tire me out and wouldn't give me the right motivation, whereas I enjoyed going to quieter events like board games events, social events where I'd meet up with friends, but not necessarily in certain environments. So it's about finding what you like doing and doing it, but it's also worth remembering that university, whilst you're at university, as Naomi mentioned, you do best when you are happy. I don't know if you necessarily said that directly, but you do best at university when you're in the right frame of mind and everything, and you've got the relevant support, and you also support your own mental well-being. So making sure you've got time for social and doing things that make you happy as well as your degree is important. So my next piece of advice was going to be about organising yourself, and a good piece of that advice, and a good portion about that piece of advice, is about managing your time. And the way that you manage your time is about planning things in, such as your lectures, when you're going to do work and whatnot, but you also need to plan in time to have fun. Maybe I saw you wanted to add something.
I'm doing a workshop on time management tomorrow. I'm just going to put the link into the chat.
Yes. But getting organised is very important, and managing your time is a big part of that, and also making time for fun is very important too. Otherwise you'll burn out. And university is 3 years long, maybe longer depending on how you're doing it. Part-time, it might be longer if you're doing it in other ways. So make sure in that time you look after yourself and make time for fun, otherwise you'll burn out. And it may be okay at times if you know you're going to have a long break afterwards to push yourself a bit harder. So for example, I've just had my partner submitted a dissertation, so she's worked really hard up until the deadline, but now she's given herself a 3-week break, so that's okay. So yeah, definitely worth looking after yourself as well as studying, otherwise you may start to struggle and you may lose motivation, things like that. So Naomi, do you have any other advice about the balancing of social aspects, or shall I keep going with my advice?
I don't. I'm quite aware of time because it is 10:30.
It is, although the booking on the site said it's until 11, so we're okay for time.
Okay, that's all right.
Because I saw the plan and went, it might look longer, so I had time for questions as well.
I just want to say as well that when Alex wrote out his advice, and I looked at the plan of what Alex was going to say, he had put as his very first piece of advice, make a file storage system for your work, and I made him change it. So you can all thank me that wasn't the first piece of advice that Alex came out with.
Well, they weren't ordered at that point, in fairness to me. I was just writing about the order that came out, but the first piece of advice I got from a student when I started university, I went to a third year student and I said, what's your biggest piece of advice? And they said, get organised, because losing files and losing things is horrible, but also organising your time so you have time for events, making sure you've got a system that works for you, all very important. And so in my first year I started making a folder system. That was okay, and I reflected on that, made it better, and so on and so on and so on. And I found a system that I could store my files in and I could store my resources in that works for me. I also found a system for my calendar in my second year that worked for me as well. So I use Google Calendar, and I can balance all my calendars up on there, for example. There's lots of other calendar apps available. But you've got to find different systems for organisation that work for you. And I made an entire hour-long podcast talking about different ways you can get organised. So I'm not going to go into it now. But yeah, there are different ways that you can use to get organised. And organising yourself will really help you. So the key thing that I have to say about organising, though, because before Naomi interjects, is the ways that you organise yourself are subjective. So you have to do them in a way that works for you. It doesn't matter if I do it in one way. If you find it works best for you in another way, then that's fine. So Naomi doesn't like using a file storage system in the same way that I do. I have many folders.
Not electronically.
Yes. I use electronic file systems to store everything, and I just feel like it has to be that way to work. Whereas Naomi just thinks differently, so it's okay to do things differently.
Yes, I'm going to share what I do. I just have everything in I do have a vague folder system. It's a vague folder system, but mostly when I want to find a file, I just search for it. Because I can never retrace my thought process. I spend more time thinking now, which folder would I have to spend all the time thinking about which folder does it make sense to put this file into? And that takes me time. And then when I'm trying to find it again, I have to think, now, which folder would it have made sense to me a year ago to put this? I can't do it. I just search for them using the search function, which is very good. So you've got OneDrive as a student of the university, and OneDrive's got a wonderful search system, and you're just searching it. Did I tell you, Alex, I discovered that the way that I think more is I organise things by people.
Yeah,
so I've started getting people, so I've got my chats in Teams, and I can think, oh, so-and-so told me this, so I'll go to that chat, and that works much better for me. So I've had, I was talking to a colleague, and he was about to send me something on and I was like, no, don't send it me as a document, just type it in this chat, because when I'm trying to think back to this, I'm going to think, oh, that was this person that told me, let me go to that chat. That was a big revelation for me.
Well, we all do it in different ways. I don't think like that. And when you told me you described your sister, I just think it couldn't work for me, because I don't know what I've named files. Unless I have a good naming system for files, I wouldn't know what I named them.
But it searches within them as well.
Yeah, I just don't think it would work for me. I just don't like it. It just doesn't feel like it works. I just like going through like 100 folders to find the exact place I've stored something, and it just works beautifully in my mind. I always know where everything is, and barely get lost unless I've made a mistake. So meetings, I have an issue on meeting folders I need to work out. But other than that, I know where everything is. The same time I've ever really got scuppered is when things fit in. When you have a meeting that's to do with two different topics, where does it go? Who knows? Anyways, yes. So that's the issue of mine that I need to work out. But I've reflected on that, and I need to work out a solution to it. But I've noticed it's a problem. But anyways, so I have two more pieces of advice left on mine. So I'm just going to go through them really quickly. The first is about something that happened to me when I was in my first year, that's happened to other students I've spoken to, and that's reading lists. So when you start university, your lecturers for each different module will give you a reading list for that module. And when I started, I thought that would mean I had to read everything on it, because that is what it looks like in my eyes when I saw it. And the truth is, if you're given a textbook, I don't think it's expected of you to read that textbook, work every single page, making notes on it, understanding it all. It's about selecting the key parts, and sometimes one textbook will cover what's covered in another textbook, and it's not always about reading both of those, unless you're researching for an assignment. So you don't always have to read everything that's given to you, and if you do try to do that, you probably won't be able to do it, and you'll then probably feel inadequate like I did. And it turns out that I actually was doing more reading than I realised I was doing, and at that time I probably did the most reading I've ever done in my degree, and I still felt inadequate. But the way I read now is I ask two questions. I ask, first of all, is this something I struggle to understand in my classes? If so, I'll read about it. Or is it something that I've been specifically... I ask three questions. Is it something that my lecturer specifically told me to read? Or am I reading it for an assignment? And those are the only times I ever really do reading. If I've struggled with a concept, if I want to do further reading for an assignment or research project, or if I'm did I say struggling? I don't know. Anyways, let's move on. Naomi.
I just think on that one, in terms of the expectations that your lecturer has of you in terms of giving you a reading list, reading in preparation for lectures, for seminars, for that kind of thing. If you're not sure, check with your lecturer.
Yes.
Definitely. If it's not clear on a reading list, if you're looking at a reading list and thinking this is really, 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 really long, then just ask your lecturer, am I expected to read all this? Because you don't want to assume that you're not and then find out that you were.
Yes.
So it's a good idea to check. But it should, if it's not clear, but certainly don't feel under pressure to read more than those expectations if it's not meeting those sorts of criteria that Alex was talking about.
And yeah, I found that I had 1,000 pages to read a week if I was to read it all, and I thought that's just not sustainable, and I wouldn't be able to remember that information. So instead I started targeting it and prioritising it. But if the lecturer says, oh, for this lecture you need to read this, read it. And you are still expected to do reading, just not necessarily in the volumes of read everything and understand nothing, if that makes sense. Okay. So the final piece of advice I have for you will link to what we're going to talk about next, which is that university is not just studying, and I think that should be made quite clear. Your time at university, only a percentage of that time is doing your coursework, doing your lectures. Parts of it, other parts of university include getting experience. They include having fun and socialising, and developing yourself and your CV. So there's lots of there's more time than you may think to actually go out there and join societies, to get involved in activities, to take opportunities to get work experience and so on. And so you can do those things. However, it depends on your schedule. So if you are unemployed, you're just studying full time, you may have more time to do those things than others. But there is time that there is available in your studying week, even if you're a full-time student, to do other things than just studying. But it depends on your calendar there as well. Naomi, do you have anything else to add on that point?
No, I don't.
Cool. But yes, definitely worth getting involved. I've got lots of podcasts that I'll show you later on as well about how you can get experience too.
Yeah, I think we need to start moving through these things a bit more quickly, Alex.
Well, that's it.
We're out of time.
We're done with them.
No,
That's
but
it.
I mean the thing is coming up.
Okay, so speaking of the podcasts, at the Skills team, we have developed a number of podcasts to help you when you start studying at university. So, in particular, I'd like to just note there are 4 podcasts that I'm just going to get up now. So, let me just transition that. And I transitioned to the wrong screen, my bad. I'm trying to use the new software, which is different to the one I used to use. Okay, so there's 4 podcasts that I want to promote in particular for starting university. And those podcasts are a podcast here with Joel Butler about university, from A-level failure to university success, where we talk about the differences between studying at A-level to studying at university and how it's not indicative and how you can get the most out of your experience at university. There's a podcast here about finding your feet at university, where I interview a successful student called Katie Harrod who completed her foundation year in law, whilst also being a mother and getting experience. So whilst doing all that, she got experience. She went and wrote for a research conference. She was the program rep for a course as well. And there's a podcast here about settling in as an international student, where Sam Chikawore from Zimbabwe travelled 6,000 miles and had to learn to settle in as a student in a different country from what he's used to, in a different culture, whilst also settling in and learning to cook for himself and things like that all the students go through, like I went through, and also learning to study at university as well. And he did a great job when he talks about how he coped within the first few weeks and how he settled in. And a final podcast called Return to Study with Ian Danton, where a mature student who's now at master's level talked about how he settled in after 30 years break from education. So all those podcasts can be found on popular podcast sites by searching the University of Derby Skills Podcast. So you can find those on Spotify, you can find those on Apple Podcasts, you can find them on YouTube. There's a playlist on this channel as well. There's 23 podcasts in total in the series, but there are those 4 episodes that I think are really good for new students. So yeah, I would recommend having a listen to those. There are other podcasts as well, so there's one which Naomi got involved in here about how you can reflect, which I think is very useful. And other podcasts, one there's here about boldness and how you can become confident in the moment, and the other one here about failure and learning to fail and help you. And there's the organised one that I mentioned as well. We have lots of podcasts. There is, I think, 30, maybe 40 of them in total. But just have a look at which ones you want to listen to, and choose accordingly. So, other things. I realised I have the plan, so I need to move the plan. So the other things that we just wanted to mention to help you are things like things that the university has that can help you. So we'll talk about those, and then we'll talk about some skills resources afterwards. So Naomi, would you like me to talk through the university things, or would you like to talk about them?
No, you go for it.
Okay, so we talked a lot about making friends today at university, and a great way to find out what's involved at university, both in terms of support and also societies that can help you to make friends, is the Freshers' Fair. I'm sure you've heard about it already, but if you go to the Uni of Students website, derbyunion.co.uk, or just search Derby Union of Students or Derby Students' Union, this website will come up, and you can find out information about freshers, which you can click on this banner here, and you can find out information about what's going on. You can buy a freshers wristband if you want to save money on going to events. I'll be honest, I actually never bought one because I only went to the events that were like Freshers Fair and so on. You can see the events that need tickets because they had to buy tickets online. But a big event that you can go to is Freshers Fair here. At this fair, on the 21st and the 22nd September, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m, there will be lots of stands from different societies. There'll be and that's always successful. I've done those a few times when I was a student. There are student-led services, so the skills team, the library will be there at times. Will be there under the banner of library. You can speak to people who represent you, and you can ask questions. You can learn about the careers and things like that. There's lots of different people you can speak to at that event to find out about things at university, ask questions, and you can find out about societies and join societies there, which I think is an amazing way to make friends. So I would recommend doing that too. Okay, quickly moving on. Naomi mentioned earlier well-being. So what I'm going to search now is the well-being site. So Wellbeing at University, there is support for well-being, and there will be links. I'm sure that you're notified of. Pardon me. But even if you are unsure and can't find those links, the easiest way to find them, you can just search Wellbeing University in Derby, which is a terrible search, and you can find support here, and you can see the different links there for the different things that you can get supported with, which could definitely help you. So do have a look into them for further information. So just you can search it on Google, or you can use links if you've been given links. Okay. Anything to add about wellbeing, Naomi, before I move on to
Nope.
personal academic tutors? So the other area of support that I just wanted to highlight is personal academic tutoring. So basically, you are allowed to have a personal academic tutor, and that personal academic tutor will be able to give you one-to-one meetings about academic issues, but you can also ask them questions and they can signpost you to other resources. They won't help you with, they won't give you direct support with things like wellbeing, but they will signpost you to people who can. So if you have got questions like that, they are the best people I found to ask. And they can help you with discussing your academic progress and your experience at university, and also your future as well after university in terms of your academic future afterwards. So they are also useful to know about. And the final thing that I want to highlight is something called the peer-assisted learning scheme here at Derby. So this is something that I was involved with when I was a student, but I would highly recommend looking into this as well. So peer-assisted learning is effectively students helping students. So students from the second years and above will support students in their first and foundation years by giving you tips, and you can ask them questions as well. If you visit this website here, which I'll put in the chat, you can search. You can search for your PAL by going to find your PAL leader. So you can see here the different PALs. Let's see. So who would my PAL leader be? So there you go. Nicola Lambert would be my discipline of law, but you can find yours and you can join their group here as well. So yeah. Those are the 4 things from across the university I wanted to highlight, but there is also library support that we have in place as well. So, Naomi, would you like to talk through this, or would you like me to talk through it?
No, I'm on this one. I'm going to talk, and Alex is going to screen share. And Alex has promised me that he's going to screen share what I'm talking about. And I can't see what Alex is doing because of the 20-second delay. So if I'm talking and Alex is not screen sharing what I'm talking about, then someone tell me in the chat, please. And 20 seconds later, I will tell Alex off. I'm relying on you watching to tell me. But the 20-second delay does make things more difficult. Okay, I'd want to talk about, so Alex was saying that we've got these 2 new videos. They were launched yesterday. So Alex, if you go to the YouTube channel and I just want to highlight these 2 introductory videos because they will cover all of the things that I'm not going to go into all the detail about now. But we've got 2 new videos, and they go alongside 2 new workshops. So the videos are video versions of the workshops, essentially. And we've got Introduction to Skills Resources and Introduction to Library Resources. So if you want a general overview of all the resources that we have available to you, like I say, they're majority online at your fingertips, for you to access, for you to help with your studies, then take a look at those 2 videos. I think Skills Resources is half an hour long, Library Resources is 20 minutes long. I tried to make them short and snappy, but there's just so much to talk about that you can only be so short and snappy. But those go through, and we don't need to screen share these, Alex, but because they're all in the video, but they go through our guides. We've got skills guides, we've got library guides, we've got interactive modules that you can go through with our podcast, like Alex just mentioned, the YouTube channel, which obviously you're on now watching this live stream. So we won't talk too much about how to get there because presumably you've made it. And also our workshops. We've got skills workshops, we've got library workshops. So all those things are covered in those 2 videos. They also have corresponding workshops. So if you want to watch the video in your own time, whenever you want to watch it, you can do that. That same content is covered in workshops. So Alex, if you could go to the workshops calendar, if we can go, so you get to that through the library homepage, start at the library homepage, and there, which is derby.ac.uk/library, or you can get there through Udo, through the main university home site, through popping Derby Uni Library into your favourite search engine. From the main library homepage, there's a link, there's a button that says workshops calendar. And if you click on that, you'll see all of our workshops. And you can, like I say, sign up to the live versions of those workshops. Those workshops all take place online. So they're all online, and they're all accessible for everybody online. And you can sign up to those live workshops as well, or watch the videos. It's entirely up to you how you best want to take in that content, as it were. Thank you very much. That is all I wish to say.
Is that your TED Talk? Well, not a TED Talk, but yes. Cool. So yes, I think that is everything we wanted to highlight. So now we're at the point of the live stream that we want to talk about. Oh, still got that up in your way. That we'd like to talk about stupid questions. So if you have any stupid questions or any questions in general,
they don't have to be stupid. They can be highly intelligent questions.
You can ask
as well.
any questions.
Any question.
And we'll do our best to answer them in the next 5 or so minutes. If you don't, then that is totally fine. But yes, let us know if you have any questions at all.
I have a question whilst people are thinking about if they have any questions. Alex, in the chat, how did you make your link a link?
I just copied and pasted
my link isn't a link.
Where's your link?
In the chat. So your links, you can click on them. My link is just text. Why is my link just text?
I can't even see your link. Where even is your link?
I said I'm doing an online workshop on time management tomorrow. You can sign up here. And then I'm going to try the link again. Going to try my link.
I can't see that link, if I'm honest, Naomi. I don't think you sent it.
It's still not a link.
Is that because it's not?
I did send it.
I can't see it. Anyways, I'll get you a link for it, and I'll send it, so it will be fine. But yes, anyone got any questions for us? Stupid or not? There's no such thing as stupid, so just not. We will do our best to answer them.
I've got another question, Alex. Can you see anything I've written in the chat?
Yeah.
Just not my link.
Yeah, just can't see your link. The last thing you said is you're very welcome. Anyhow, okay. So yeah, let us know if you have any questions about skills or anything. Naomi. Yeah.
Oh, people, why can't people see what I'm typing?
Who knows? I can't see it.
I'll stop typing things then.
Just let me know if you type something and I'll just type it for you. I put it in as Derby Uni Library. Anyways, yeah, I can't see any questions coming in, but if you have any questions, otherwise, the ways to ask them, if you have any questions specifically about library resources, so on, is you can email library@derby.ac.uk, or you can use our live chat function, which I shall demonstrate now. So let me just do that, transition. So going from the library website, if on any page that's on the LibGuide pages, You can access the live chat via this chat box at the bottom right called Library Help. If you click on it, you can say chat now, and then you can ask a question. And there will be someone there when it is green who can help answer that question, or they can signpost you to someone else who can answer it otherwise. Naomi, do you want to talk through anything else?
I was just going to say it's staffed Monday to Friday 9 till 5. If it's red, it means that it's not staffed, but you can still click on it and submit a question, and then they'll get back to you when it's staffed.
Cool. Again, so yeah, I think that is everything that we wanted to cover. Naomi, do you have a final word?
I do have a final word. I just wanted to say thank you very much to everybody that has joined us for this live stream. We do enjoy doing them. We were live streaming regularly before, and I'm sure we will be live streaming again. So do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't, because then you will get notifications when we go live. And keep an eye on the workshops calendar as well, because we advertise them there too. And I just wanted to say best wishes to everybody with your studies, regardless of what point in your studies you are, whether you're just starting, whether you're halfway through, whether you're just coming to the end. Best wishes with your studies, and do check out all those resources that we've talked about, because there's lots of good stuff there.
Definitely. I do agree. And yeah, good luck with your studies. I'm sure you'll do amazing. If not, reflect on it and you can find out how you can do slightly better. Because like I said, it's not about getting it right the first time, but it's about learning how to get it right over time, because it is a marathon and not a sprint. Anyways, best of luck.
Just got one more in there, Alex.
Yes.
Your journey is a marathon and not a sprint.
Yes.
You transform yourself while shooting for the stars.
Yes. Whilst also making friendships by just saying hi. Is any other ones that I've got? No, I can't see any other cliches in here.
No.
Well. But yes, do make use of our resources. But yeah, very good luck with returning and starting uni. Okay then, so
we're gonna wave.
Yes, you can wave if you'd like to. I shall wave as well. Need to make sure my hand's actually in the camera because I've zoomed my camera in. So yeah, good luck and best wishes, and yeah, thank you very much for watching.
Bye.
Goodbye. Just to let you know, Neri, you won't actually on camera anymore.
That's alright, I don't mind waving.
That's fair enough. Okay, cool. So yeah, thank you very much everyone for watching, and I shall end the stream just about there.